welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're diving into some really interesting sources about different ways to think about money. Specifically, looking at Robert Kiyosaki's ideas from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, based on the excerpts you sent over.
Exactly. And our mission really is to unpack the core concepts in these materials. We'll contrast the sort of traditional financial advice the author talks about with his alternative views.
And pull out insights you can actually use, right?
Yeah.
To maybe look at your own finances a bit differently.
That's the goal. Get you thinking.
Okay. So expect some maybe challenging ideas here, things that might go against the grain. Let's kick things off with the central story, the foundation. It's this contrast between two dads, isn't it?
That's right. The author frames everything around these two father figures. There's his own father, who he calls Poor Dad. Highly educated, PhD, very successful in his career as head of education.
Right. Follow the path we're often told to follow.
Exactly. Study hard, good grades, get that secure job, the big company, the benefits. He believed you work for your money. Save diligently.
But the source says he often said things like, I'm not really interested in money.
Yeah, that's a key phrase mentioned. And the source argues this conventional path, despite his success and rising income, led him into what it calls the rat race.
Meaning?
Well, his income went up, but so did his expenses and his liabilities. They kind of matched each other. So income equals expenses, pretty much. And his assets were less than his liabilities.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
So struggling to get ahead financially, even with a good job, he was focused on his resume, finding that next job.
Exactly. Building credentials to find work. Now, contrast that with Rich Dad.
This was his best friend's father.
Correct. And he was quite different, a self-taught entrepreneur. The source says he retired young, around 47.
Wow.
His whole focus was the opposite, not working for money, but having money work for him.
Money is power.
Yeah.
That was his view.
That's the quote the source uses, yeah. And his lessons weren't from textbooks. They were like real-world experiences, mentorship.
And his financial picture looked different too, I assume.
Totally. The source shows his statement as income greater than expenses. And crucially, assets much greater than liabilities. He wasn't looking for jobs.
He was creating them.
He was creating investments, teaching how to build businesses, create jobs.
So the fundamental difference, it's not just income level. It's the whole mindset, how you approach money, what you focus on building.
Precisely. One worked for money, the other built systems where money worked for him. That's the first big takeaway. It challenges that standard advice.
Yeah, the idea that school teaches you professional skills, but not financial skills.
Right. The source argues that lack of financial education is why smart people can still struggle. Which leads us right into the next big piece.
The cornerstone, you called it.
Yeah, the absolute cornerstone of financial literacy, according to this source. Knowing the difference between an asset and a liability.
Okay, sounds basic.
It sounds almost too basic, but the source insists this is where most people get tripped up.
So what's the Rich Dad definition?
Super simple. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That's it.
Money in versus money out.
Yep. And the source uses these cash flow diagrams. An asset generates income flowing towards you. A liability creates expenses flowing away from you.
Okay, I can see that. And this explains the rat race pattern for the poor and middle class described in the source.
Exactly. Income comes in, mostly from a job, but then it flows straight out again. Taxes, mortgage, car payments, credit cards, you name it.
And they often think things like their house are assets.
Right. But the source argues, based on that cash flow definition, the primary home is usually a liability because money flows out for the mortgage, taxes, upkeep. It doesn't put money in your pocket month after month.
So income goes up, maybe you buy a bigger house, car.
Expenses go up, liabilities increase, but that asset column, the thing generating income, it doesn't grow. You're just running faster on the wheel.
But the rich pattern is different.
Completely. Their income comes primarily from their assets, businesses they own but don't have to run day to day, stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate.
And that cash flow.
It covers their expenses, and importantly, the surplus gets reinvested back into buying more assets. So the asset column grows, which generates even more income. It's a positive cycle.
And that point about the house, that's definitely controversial. Treating your home as a liability.
It is. The source frames it as often being an emotional purchase, not purely a financial one. And it suggests high emotions can kind of cloud financial judgment.
Okay, so that simple distinction, money in versus money out, really forces you to reevaluate everything. It's about cash flow, not just ownership,
Exactly. Understanding how money moves is key.
which I guess leads perfectly into the next big lesson from the source. Mind your own business.
Yes. And there's that great story about Ray Kroc and McDonald's.
That's right. He told the MBA students he wasn't really in the hamburger business.
He said he was in the real estate business because McDonald's Corporation, the source points out, focused on owning the land under the restaurants. The franchisees sold the burgers, that was their profession. Kroc's business was the asset, the land,
So that distinction is key. Your profession, which earns you income.
versus your business, which is building your asset column.
And the source says the rich focus on the asset column, while everyone else is just focused on the income statement, getting a raise, a better job.
Right. They're focused on increasing income from their job, not acquiring things that generate income independently.
So what counts as a real asset according to this source?
It lists things like businesses that don't need your direct management, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate that generates income like rentals, notes, or IOUs where you're the lender, royalties from things like patents or books.
So things that produce income or appreciate in value and you could actually sell.
Exactly. And it specifically contrasts these with personal possessions, your car, your golf clubs, nice clothes. Those lose value. They take money out. They aren't assets in this definition, even if a banker might count them for loan purposes.
What about net worth? Assets minus liabilities.
The source is a bit skeptical about relying just on net worth. It argues it's often worth less than calculated because if you actually sell those assets to pay bills, you usually get hit with taxes on the gains, reducing what you actually pocket.
So cash flow from assets is more important than just the theoretical value.
That's the emphasis. So the advice is pretty direct. Keep your day job, pay the bills, but start using surplus income to buy real assets. Build your business on the side.
Focus on that asset column. What's your business beyond your job? That's the question it poses to you, the listener.
Yeah, what could you start building or acquiring?
Okay, so we've got the mindset shift, understanding assets, but the source goes deeper, right, into developing what it calls financial IQ and overcoming obstacles.
Right. Financial IQ isn't just literacy, knowing the definitions. The source breaks it down into 4 areas of expertise. Accounting, reading the numbers. Investing, the science of making money with money. Marketing understanding, supply, demand, sales. And law, knowing how legal structures like corporations work, tax advantages, protection,
Combining those makes it easier.
makes making money with money easier, the source argues, compared to just working hard for money, which is what most people know.
And it mentions how the rich use the law aspect strategically.
Yeah, using corporations, for example. The source points out potential advantages, like maybe deducting certain expenses, like cars or even vacations if they're legitimate business costs paid with pre-tax dollars through the company. And of course, legal protection from lawsuits.
It also makes a historical point about taxes.
Kind of an aside, but it suggests that attempts to tax the rich often backfired because the rich found legal ways, using corporations and loopholes, to minimize their tax burden, and the burden ultimately shifted more heavily onto the middle class who rely on wages.
Okay, interesting perspective there. But what about the internal stuff? The things that stop people even if they know this? The source lists 5 main obstacles.
Yeah, these are huge. First one, fear. Specifically, the fear of losing money.
Which is pretty natural.
It is, but the source takes a strong stance. It says, losers avoid failing, but failure inspires winners. Think of athletes, it says. Losing makes them practice harder, get better. Financially, setbacks should make you learn, not quit.
It contrasts playing it safe versus playing to win, especially when starting out.
Right, like overly diversifying a tiny amount of money versus focusing it to really learn one area well.
Okay, number 2.
Cynicism. The chicken littles, the source calls them, always saying the sky's falling, or people who just shoot down ideas without analysis. Oh, real estate. I don't want to fix toilets.
That sounds familiar.
Doubt and fear create cynicism, the source says. The cure. Analysis. Look deeper. See what the critics miss. And if you don't want to fix toilets, hire someone who does. Doubt is expensive. It keeps you stuck in low-yield options.
Third obstacle, laziness, but disguised.
Disguised as being too busy. We all do it. The source suggests the cure is a little greed, not negative greed, but asking, what's in it for me? WIIFM.
Okay.
Having a strong desire for something better, financial freedom, not having to work that desire overcomes the inertia, the busyness excuse. It fuels action.
Number 4 is bad habits.
Yeah, the source says our lives are basically reflections of our habits. And the most crucial financial habit, pay yourself first.
Explain that one.
It means before you pay bills, before you pay creditors, you put money aside for your asset column, your investments or savings, even if it makes things tight.
That's so stressful.
It can be, but the source argues that pressure forces you to be smarter, to find ways to generate more income or cut other expenses rather than just raiding your savings. It builds financial muscle. The key is you don't touch that pay yourself first money for consumer debt.
Okay. And the last one, arrogance.
Defined basically as ego plus ignorance. It's thinking you know it all or that what you don't know isn't important, dismissing new ideas.
The source has an equation for it.
Yeah, kind of bluntly. Intelligence plus arrogance. Ignorance. A truly smart person, it argues, is humble, welcomes new ideas, learns from experts, doesn't just argue or defend their existing position.
Wow, that's quite a list of internal hurdles. Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, arrogance. It really makes you think which of those might be holding you back.
Absolutely. Addressing even one could make a huge difference. It's not just about knowing what to do, it's about becoming the kind of person who can do it.
So let's say you're ready. You want to tackle these, build that asset column. What are the practical starting points the source suggests?
Okay, several actionable things here. First, find your why. A really strong, deep emotional reason. Why do you want financial independence? That reason have to be strong enough to get you through the tough times, the setbacks.
Maybe it won't be easy.
Nope. And second, recognize the power of choice. Every single dollar you get, the source says, is a choice. You choose to be rich, poor, or middle class with how you handle that dollar. Your spending habits reveal everything.
And reinforcing that habit again.
Pay yourself first. Absolutely fundamental in this approach. Set money aside for assets first, then figure out the rest. Let the pressure work for you.
What about learning?
Huge emphasis on investing in your financial education before you invest your actual money. The source contrasts buying, say, a new gadget versus buying books, attending seminars, listening to educational audio. Learn how to learn fast. Pay experts for their knowledge.
And who you hang out with matters.
Definitely. Choose friends carefully. Associate with people who talk about money, investing, ideas, people who are doing what you want to do. Learn from them. And be careful listening to fearful people who haven't actually done it themselves.
Learn a formula, then find new ones. What does that mean?
Like maybe you learn a specific strategy for buying rental properties or trading stocks. Master that one way to make money with money. Then actively look for another formula, a faster way, a different approach. Keep learning how money makes money.
There's also this interesting Indian giver concept mentioned.
Yeah, it's about getting your initial investment back quickly while still holding the asset. So, say you buy some stock, it goes up, you sell just enough shares to get your original money back. Now the rest of the shares you hold are essentially free in terms of your initial cash outlay. It reduces risk, lets you play with house money, so to speak. Aim to get your seed money back.
Seek legal insider trading. Sounds risky.
It's not talking about illegal stuff. It means getting close to the action, talking to brokers, accountants, attorneys, other investors, people who have specialized knowledge and see deals or trends early. That's where the source says the big money is often made through better information and expert connections.
And then you just have to do it. Take action.
Massively important. Make offers, especially in things like real estate. Make lots of them, even low ones. Don't get emotionally attached. Use escape clauses, like the funny example in the source of needing your business partner's approval who happens to be the cat.
So it's a numbers game partly.
It's a game. Have fun with it. Don't take rejection personally. You need to make offers to find the deals.
Think big too, right?
Yeah, buy the whole pie. Don't just nibble at the crust. Look for opportunities to scale, like the land example. Buy a big piece, subdivide, sell some to recoup your cost, keep the rest for free. Small thinking, get small results. Look for volume discounts, bigger opportunities.
And don't try to do it all yourself.
Absolutely not. Hire experts. If you hate fixing toilets, hire a property manager. Get good brokers who find deals for you. Build your own board of directors, smart accountants, smart attorneys, smart advisors. Pay people who are smarter than you in specific areas.
And finally, teach it.
Teach to learn. The act of explaining these ideas to someone else solidifies them for you. Plus, there's principle of giving. If you want more sales, contacts, opportunities, give leads, help others first. It tends to come back around. Your world reflects you. So, looking at all those steps, the challenge to you, the listener, is which one could you actually start this week? What's one small action, one new habit you could implement today? That's how change starts, according to these sources. Action, fueled by knowledge, and that strong why.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a lot. This deep dive really showed a different way of thinking about money than the usual advice. We looked at that core contrast working for money versus money working for you.
The crucial difference between assets and liabilities based purely on cash flow.
The call to mind your own business by actively building that asset column.
And those internal obstacles, fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, arrogance, plus the actionable steps the source provides to get started.
Yeah, the core message seems to be that financial freedom isn't just about luck or even just working hard at your job. It's about boosting your financial intelligence, that mix of accounting, investing, marketing, and law.
And then intentionally building assets that make your money work for you.
So at the end of the day, the source argues it's not just how much you earn, but how much you keep, and how effectively that kept money generates more money through your assets.
Right. So maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on this week, drawing from the source. If your life really is a reflection of your habits and your spending habits are a window into your financial intelligence, what's just one small, specific money habit you could change starting today to begin building that asset column and actively shift your financial future?
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.